kaleidoscope of fractious kingdoms. Once imperial Rome, the waterworld of Venice, Michelangelo's Florence, operatic Milan. But Italy, the nation, begins in its heavens, at its Northwest Passage, where painterly perfect mountains collide with a city of tumultuous invention, where suffering and freedom intertwine, where cliffside castles are built, sky-top fortresses erected to resist the invaders they knew would come. In these heights, by brave hearts never conquered, is born the unifying miracle. Il Risorgimento, resurrection, the birth of Italy. The first parliament, a new flag, long bickering cousins made one. It happens here in the shadow of these frosted Alps, amid the capacious piazzas and endless porticos and Baroque splendor of long embattled Torino. Tonight, in the country's first capital, 2,500 athletes have arrived at the doors to Italy. With stories from across the globe, born of a certain place, united by an indomitable passion. Like the one who left home alone to seek his destiny in an Oz called St. Petersburg. And the new Beijing capitalist who competes not for money, but love. Some are small-town heroes. He's cut the wood for his skis in a forested Austrian highland. And in tiny Tarnaby, a 24-year-old Swedish sensation already has a holiday named just for her. These stories end only to begin again. Chronic illness conquered by a triumphant resolve. A nation's enduring inspiration who's defied a failing body stitched together by 12 surgeries. The one who subdued the agony of defeat and the shadow of death. And after the record gold rush of Salt Lake City, the red, white, and blue is expected to rise again and again. There's the young Americans in a 21st century sport. From the West, San Diego's fiery marvel. From the East, captivating borders burning with a vivacious brand of excellence. He's the philosophical daredevil drawn to Alaska's wild to tease the outer limits of his fear. And he's the electric Colorado who sidesteps mayhem, head down, straight ahead. The American mosaic includes the object of another nation's frustration. This Seattle native of Japanese heritage who lives and trains with a Zen-like zeal. He's a Texas cyclone, a whirlwind born from nowhere, so sudden, so daunting. He's called the exception. The royalty of American figure skating returned with clear purpose. One seeking to harness her tantalizing talent for one defining moment. The other to claim in her curtain call that only missing prize, Olympic gold. For all his life, this Chicago pioneer has stretched the notion of what is possible. For one last hurrah, this California screamer has willfully converted his body into a bullet. And this impetuous New Hampshire rebel defines his state's very motto: live free or die. Their stories begin tonight, where Italy was born, where resistance has long flourished, wars ignited and extinguished, where a kaleidoscope of kingdoms was finally merged in a city of majesty and sanctity, where competition ignites the flames of passion. A city of succulent style and stylish speed, where greatness is born of fearless visions and unconditional devotions. North of Rome and Florence, west of Venice and Milan, the world comes to Italy's Alpine heights. Tonight, the world comes to hear stories, old and new. The stories of Torino.
The Olympic torch has made its way from the skyscraping mountains of the Italian Alps toward Torino, passing through Sestriere, where reigning Alpine World Cup champion Bode Miller will compete in 5 events. The torch just about to conclude a journey of some 7,000 miles through the Italian peninsula. The Winter Games have come to Italy for the second time, the first since Cortina in 1956, 50 years ago. Many of you at home are familiar with this country's other famous majestic cities, but now this mountainside metropolis tucked into Italy's northwest corner is about to gain its own global profile. The torch's journey concludes tonight at the opening ceremony of the 20th Olympic Winter Games at Stadio Olimpico. Built by Benito Mussolini in 1933, this stadium underwent a $35 million facelift, just one piece of a massive revitalization of this city for these games. Hello, everyone. Jim Lampley from Studio One at the International Broadcast Center. The Torino Games officially begin tonight with the opening ceremony. And unlike the Summer Games, where the Parade of Nations is reserved for the latter portion of the ceremony, here at the Winter Games, the athletes march early. Of course, the night will culminate with the lighting of the cauldron, the identity of the final torchbearer, as always, a closely kept secret. Bob Costas and Brian Williams are out at Stadio Olimpico, and we'll join them in about 40 minutes. But first, we'll talk about 3 of the athletes who could define these games. Bode Miller, certainly the most visible athlete coming into these games for his growing resume of historic successes and his steady stream of headline-making comments. He was on the downhill course today for official training. Miller's place in Sunday's downhill is secure, but there are 3 other American men vying for 2 remaining spots, and one of them qualifies based on today's training results. We'll have that for you shortly. Also, in Bardonecchia, where he's tweaking his 1080s, we'll check in with the California team called the Flying Tomato, Shaun White, who swept into these games with victories in all 5 Olympic qualifying events. But we begin with the most recognizable athlete on the U.S. team, 5-time world champion and double Olympic medalist Michelle Kwan, competing in her 3rd Olympics at age 25 in search of the one prize which has eluded her, Olympic gold. Kwan took an unusual path to these games, petitioning onto the team because of an injury, and for the first time arrives at the Olympics as a clear underdog. Kwan spoke with our Mary Carrillo this afternoon.
You have had, at various times, hip problems, back problems, a groin pull. You're not going to tell me you're 100%?
You know, I wish I could spend more time in the ice rink training, but this is what I have. You know, I have to go back to what the body's programmed to do. I've done all these jumps a million times before. So when I had my groin pull, I couldn't do several jumps. So when the doctor put me on the strict order, like, can't do double axe, can't do this, I'm like, ah. But then I thought, you know, I've done this for so many years. Just, you have to know your body. You have to kind of play it like an instrument.
Right, right. And you're obeying it?
I am.
Well, because of the groin pull, you had to petition for a place on the U.S. team and convince a panel of officials that you were fit enough to be here. No pressure. No pressure.
That's what one of the judges came up to me before I skated, like, oh, don't worry about it. We're just here to watch. I'm like, and tell that to the camera, 1,000 camera crews outside, and, you know, there's tension in the rink, but, yeah, that's what I had to do. It was unusual circumstances, but...
You never had to do that before, something like that. What was it, a whole different kind of pressure?
It was my own Olympics. Nothing is ever certain, so when I finished the program, I made a few mistakes. You know, I did triples, I did triple flip, triple lutz, but you know, you finish skating and that's all you can do. You know, you wait and see.
That was some relief on your face. I mean, you looked exhausted, relieved.
I couldn't breathe. I was like, it was just a whole moment. I mean, I got phone calls from everybody. Nancy Kerrigan, I mean, she was wishing me well. I mean, a lot of phone calls.
What did Nancy Kerrigan say to you?
You know, she's known me since I was 12 years old. And I remember the first nationals that I was in the same dressing room, and I was like, I was telling my coach, I'm like, and now she's like, you wanted to go to the 3 Olympics, now here you are. I'm like, wow, it's just amazing.
The thing is, we're so used to seeing classical, you know, moves from you to classical music. And you're showing up in Torino with techno.
With techno?
Isn't that where you're going?
Well, I've got my own, that's my short program, and it's got this powerful vibe to it. So hopefully the audience will get involved.
And I've heard that you're like a hip hop.
I love hip hop.
So this isn't out of your comfort zone to go this far away?
On the ice, it's okay. But long program, I'll go back to what I'm very comfortable at.
The favorites here, Michelle, obviously the Russian Marina Slutskaya and the American Sasha Cohen. For you to win the one color Olympic medal that you're lacking, the gold, is the biggest challenge going to be your physical condition or your mental attitude? Or is it going to be emotional, like, I got to attack, I got to go after this thing? Really?
I'm never emotional.
That's right.
There's something about being at the Olympics, there's something about the sport of figure skating that moved me so much. It's so beautiful, and it is a sport, you know, win or lose. I'm here just to skate and try my best and skate from the heart.
We'll all be watching, thanks.
Thank you.
Nancy Kerrigan was by no means alone among those in the figure skating community to express their support for Kwon and for her inclusion on this year's Olympic team. There's a simple and practical reason for that. By finishing 4th at last year's World Championships, combined with Sasha Cohen's second-place finish, Kwon assured that the United States would have 3 rather than just 2 competitor spots here in Torino. That was just the latest in more than a decade of contributions Michelle Kwon has made as the public face of U.S. figure skating. Next, we go to Sestriere, where training continues for the glamour event of skiing, the men's downhill. And the world's 2 alpine powers, the United States and Austria, each used today's run to select an additional member of their teams for Sunday's gold medal race. Plus, a first look at American alpine world champion, Bodie Miller.
Here's to all those who dream of being a champion.
What are you waiting for? A written invitation to participate in life? Well, you have one. It's called a birth certificate. So, what does life take? Life takes ambition and practice. It takes luck.
The 20th Olympic Winter Games on NBC are brought to you by Budweiser, proud sponsor of the U.S. Olympic team. By Target, expect more, pay less. By United, flying America's team for more than 25 years. And by Visa, proud sponsor of the Olympic Winter Games. No matter what it takes to live your dreams, life takes Visa.
Sestriere is an Italian ski town with a French name and now an instant Olympic heritage as part of the Torino Games. Skiing is its passion and après-ski its pleasure. The mountains are its comfort and its peril. Sestriere's beauty and its beast. And the peaks beckon to a special breed of athletes. Sunday, the world's bravest ski racers will succumb to the lure, diving down 3,000 feet, testing their skills and their wills, carving through twists and turns, flying over bumps and jumps. These are everyday thrills for these daredevils, whose lust for speed dominates the inherent danger of downhill. The fun is going fast. The goal is first place. The prize is Olympic gold. Today is day 2 of men's downhill training here at Sestriere. Tim Ryan with Todd Brooker. Darren Rawls, the American star, is not going to run today, and there's a good reason why. Darren Rawls here on day 1 of the training. Beautiful conditions for the racers here. Their first look at the course here at Sestriere, above the tiny community of Sestriere known as Borgata.
Tim, since the very first race that I saw Darren this season, he has been on a mission. I mean, he's got an Olympic mission. He wants a gold medal here, but this is also a very important season. It will be his last season on the World Cup, and he's looking to leave his legacy on the World Cup Tour.
Boy, the way he started here, looks like Darren's in a very determined mood. A lot of racers will sometimes just kind of make sure they're finding their line and not go all out, but it looks like Darren holding that tuck much of the way here.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what these training runs are for, but Darren has always really focused in on his line early, and he wants to hit it early, so this first run is important for him. Remember, Tim, he's a 185-pound guy racing in a field of 230-pound linebacker types, and on a speedway like this, it's important for him to be perfect.
3 downhill victories already this year, 3rd in the World Cup standings in downhill. He had a victory 2 years ago on this very course, so he's familiar with it. Of course, it's a different gate set, different conditions.
Well, Tim, it's obvious he loves this course, but he also loves these snow conditions. And the harder and the icier it is, the better Darren Rawls can manufacture turns. He can get inside the lines and edge harder than anybody else, and on the hard snow, it will not slow him down.
800s ahead there. Michael Valkofer is the leader in the downhill standings this season, and obviously
you got to admit, though, this is an unusual first run. He's trying to tuck everywhere he can. He's right on the gates. I mean, he's racing this thing like it is the race. I'm kind of surprised at this.
Well, there's no let-up for sure so far. As he approaches the bottom part of the course, Darren Rawls just letting it all go.
Well, see if he tucks right to the finish here. That's an indication right to the finish line. He's trying to win this thing, Tim.
More than a second faster than Michael Valkofer. He's thrown down the gauntlet. After the run, he spoke with Lewis Johnson.
Darren, how did you find your first practice run here on the Olympic downhill course?
Man, it just it was sweet top to bottom. I was charging pretty hard, and the snow is insane. It's pretty smooth. There's a few like rough sections, but the snow is really hard. It's compact, and you lay into the skis and tip them like straight up, like almost like, you know, fully laid up vertical. And when you can get that going and you feel some good power building up, it's a good time.
Well, that was yesterday. This is today. Darren Rawls took the day off. Bodie Miller didn't, though. He's getting ready to go here. Training day number 2. And the American superstar yesterday was back in the middle of the pack, about where he would have chosen to be, I would think. But what do you think he'll do today, Todd Brooker?
Tim, Bodie's got a pretty standard routine when it comes to training runs. He doesn't like to show too much early on, and what he does like to do.
From Middle East coastal plain to its alpine heights, soon to reach its final destination, Torino Stadio Olimpico. The start of our opening ceremony coverage less than 30 minutes away. Right now, we go back to Sestriere. For more downhill training coverage, Tim Ryan and Todd Brooker.
You're looking at Steve Nyman, one of the 3 young Americans battling for a spot in the final 4 racers who will go for the United States on Sunday.
Come on, Stevie, today, man. 4. Come on, Stevie!
He's 23 years old from Orem, Utah, and like his teammate Scott McCartney, he finished the season on the World Cup Tour leading into the Olympics with a 4th place finish at Garmisch, kind of coming out of nowhere with that very good result.
Yeah, but Tim, Steve Nyman has got a couple really big things going for him. One thing is his size, 6'4", 230 pounds. The man is massive and strong. He's definitely made for downhill. The other thing is he's talented. I mean, he has come out of nowhere. He's been able to get great results both nationally and internationally. I mean, this is a rising superstar.
Well, this competition today is indeed exactly that. You can see he's going all out because he wants one of those spots on this team for Sunday's Olympic race.
I think you have to remember, too, there's a lot going on in this course, Tim. A lot of turns, a lot of bumps. Darren Ralphs has been here before. Bodie Miller has been here before, but these other three guys are seeing it for the first time. So if they're making some mistakes on the way down in this training run, they're doing it for good reason.
As usual, the Austrians and the Swiss are having a competition like this one, but it's very rare. In fact, it's never happened for the U.S. to be actually having a competition within their team to pick the 4 spots, 2 after, of course, Ralphs and Miller.
And Tim, it hasn't all been easy for Steve Nyman either. He had 2 broken legs that he's had to deal with last season.
Beginning with the man who comes to these games with the highest profile and rather heavy expectations. Jimmy went across the border into the French Alps to visit Bodie Miller at his last pre-Olympic competition.
Lamps, I did, and it has been a turbulent year so far for Bodie Miller. He hasn't produced the results he did in 2005, but he says that success isn't necessarily about, quote, the order of finish. He says a lot of things, a lot of which are hard to figure out. He doesn't often grant interviews, but just this past week I went to Chamonix, France, site of the final World Cup race before the Olympic Games, and spent some time with the enigmatic Miller inside the RV, which serves as his home away from home as he travels around Europe during the World Cup season. It is the winter of Bodie Miller's discontent. The camper where he lives says, go fast. It might as well say, go away. He's been hounded by fans and media, not just because he's the defending World Cup champion, but also because of his recent comments. Among them, he told 60 Minutes that he'd, quote, skied wasted. It's been a tough and intrusive time.
I guess the most important thing is that I wanted to come straight out and apologize to my, mostly my family, friends, but also we have a lot of people who have supported me along the way.
What's your take on all of the fallout after the 60 Minutes interview?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's typical. It's typical America, I mean.
In what sense?
Tabloids. It's people want something to talk about. They, people want to think about anything except themselves or what they should do or how they act or how to better, be a better person or how to be the person they want to be or even to figure out what kind of person they do want to be.
Right, so you don't regret anything you said then?
I never said I skied drunk. I was hungover. Hadn't had a drink in, bunches of hours. Yeah, I regret some of the fallout, but the fallout for me, it doesn't bother me at all, really. The stuff that's a bummer is that my team has to deal with it and, it's affected, it affects sponsors, and my family has to deal with it.
He is the defending overall World Cup champion, but for months, he couldn't decide if he wanted to ski at the Olympic Games or not. Now, he is here.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where I feel like I've made a mistake and I shouldn't be participating just because, I think it's a really important and valuable event for the world. And I think by even having some doubt in your mind, I think you sort of, you sully the event.
Are you excited? Are you nervous? Is it just another race? I mean, how do you put a finger on, on how you feel about this?
I mean, I don't have to put a finger on it. That's what's nice about being me instead of you. You have to put a finger on it, but
you're the one who'll complain if I do put a finger on it, though, right?
Well, I'll complain either way, probably.
Well, you'll complain either way? I'm just trying to understand where your head's at, because there are going to be millions of people who are going to watch you, and they're going to wonder, they're going to see up in the start gate, and they're just going to wonder, is he into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Olympics, so when I get in the gate, the race is in itself a race. I mean,
right.
I'll race. That's what I do. I love that part. That's the best, the best thing that I do, really.
And plus, you don't like this.
No.
No. I mean, it's clear. Is this torture for you?
No, it's not bad. I mean, you also got to take into consideration the things that I'm saying. I've been through a lot of transitions, and I've dealt with a lot of challenging situations with authority, with having to being forced into a position where I had to manipulate a system to get what I wanted out of it. And if you don't think I'm that way with the press or with you guys, then you're simply missing the point.
What is your morality?
What to you makes you feel good about yourself?
You know, in general, it's been a long process for me. There's always been, you know, rules, and I've never really been one for following the rules. I basically do the things that I want to do and don't do the things I don't want to do or think are wrong, and that's a pretty basic breakdown, but it does cover sort of my approach.
Lamps, the first thing you have to understand about Bode Miller is that I don't know that he is wired for this public personality thing. He was raised in a very, very small town, and of course, everybody knows the story now. No electricity, no running water, you know, homeschooled until he was in 3rd grade. So he's a different kind of cat.
Our experts and producers up at Alpine Skiing firmly believe that he can flip the switch. Can you tell whether the switch has already been flipped?
I think that he is motivated. It's just my sense. I'm no expert, but I think he is motivated by all of this that's gone on around him, and I think the challenge has been shouted out to him.
That's exciting, and not surprisingly, you're going to have more Bode Miller material for us on Sunday.
We will indeed.
All right. Thanks very much, Jimmy. Meanwhile, 4 years ago, the American men swept the halfpipe competition at the Salt Lake Games. 4 years later, gold medal favorite Shaun White headlines another very strong American contingent. Our first look at the halfpipe in Bardonecchia next.
Walt Disney Pictures presents.
That's my best girl doing.
A once-in-a-lifetime motion picture experience.
You in or out, buddy?
Translation?
That'd be out.
Inspired by an incredible true story that you have to see to believe.
How are we going to get the dog?
Critics are calling 8 Below magnificent.
Again, so pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again.
DHL is proud to support the 2006 Olympic Spirit Award, given to athletes like Dan Jansen.
Good morning, Mr. Jansen.
Who never give up.
I know what that feels like.
Go to dhl-usa.com to vote for this year's winners.
Together, this tiny toiletry team might only free up enough space in your luggage for an extra sock roll. But this is not about efficiency. This is about making a statement. You're here to tell the world, I am going on vacation. And I've got the travel-sized toothbrush with the handle that's also a protective cap to prove it. Welcome to my opening ceremonies. Expedia.
Torino's Stadio Olimpico awaiting the arrival of the Olympic torch. 80 countries will be marching in the Parade of Nations. As always, curiosity builds as to the identity of the final torchbearer. The men's halfpipe competition takes place all on one day, this Sunday, from the quaint mountain village of Bardonecchia. The United States swept the medals in the men's competition at the last games, and much is expected of the team once again. In a sense, however, the competition is already underway, because in final training, the athletes don't merely perfect their moves, there's also the chance to gain a mental edge. We go to Pat Parnell and Todd Richards.
Americans Shaun White along with Mason Aguirre, they are among the best snowboarders in the world that have descended upon the slopes of Bardonecchia as we ready for the biggest halfpipe competition in the history of the sport. The athletes arrived Tuesday and immediately took advantage of the allotted daily 4-hour practice prior to the event. Now, it is these early runs that serve as the ultimate barometer of things to come. This laid-back atmosphere, it can be deceptive. What seems chaotic is far from it. All the riders practicing at once, and in the midst of it, they're all closely watching what other competitors are doing, calculating and calibrating for the main event. All eyes, however, Todd, affixed on one individual, that rider being Shaun White.
And why not, Pat? Shaun is coming into the Olympics after winning every single event he has entered this season. And that fact alone makes him the favorite for the gold here. Now, I've spoken to many of the other competitors, and they say if Shaun rides to his potential, the gold is his. So, the mental battle begins for silver and bronze.
And it just makes one ask, what is it that Shaun White is doing that is so right?
Well, his head's in the right place, and I think that is the most important fact here that we need to look at. He has a run that he has dialed. He's used it to win many competitions this season, so all he needs to do now is just practice, perfect it, go higher, and spin more.
Then there's the intimidation factor. Consider this is practice. All the other competitors just acclimating to the pipe. Shaun White comes out and is throwing down competition-winning runs.
All of these competitors are watching each other. They're watching to see what will be thrown down later on in the finals. But Shaun is riding just perfect right now, immaculate. Let's take a look here. Watch how confident he is with his edge work. Blasting gigantic airs like this, very common for him in practice, and linking incredible spin moves together, a backside 900 scene there. I mean, seriously, the riders have got to be looking at him just trembling with what he's going to do when it comes down to crunch time.
Then there's the aspect of the judging, overall impression, and a big part of that is execution, landing cleanly. No one does it better than Shaun. But consider the Finnish contingent led by Antti Audi. Now remember, Antti Audi won the X Games last year, upsetting Shaun. And you've gone on the record, Todd, this is the way Antti Audi spins. One of the best.
That's right, he is. He has the combos that it takes to win a contest like this. Shaun's got back-to-back 1080s. Antti Audi has back-to-back 1080s. Now, he's not the only Finnish guy that poses a threat to the gold. We've also got Risto Matala. He also has the skills to win here as well. Also throwing back-to-back 1080s and also very, very technical and very, very clean.
The Finnish contingent, as I pointed out, a definite standout here in practice. And you mentioned the back-to-back 1080s.
And you can't mention back-to-back 1080s without mentioning Danny Cass. Now, when you say 1080, it's 3 full rotations in the air. And when you have to do 2 of those consecutively down the half-pipe, it's no joke. Danny Cass was the first to do those back in 2002 at the U.S. Open in Stratton Mountain, Vermont.
Of course, that was coming off the silver medal win at the 2002 Winter Olympics. Danny Cass, though, watching him in practice, getting more and more comfortable acclimating.
That's right. Danny is one of those riders who you may think he's not riding all that well, but when it comes down to the show, he will throw down.
So, Todd, can we count on Danny Cass doing the back-to-back 1080s?
Here will be to take you to Stadio Olimpico for the opening ceremony. And as NBC begins its 418 hours of coverage here in Torino, we are also embarking on a technological milestone. For the next 17 days and nights, the Olympics are, for the first time, being broadcast in true high-definition simulcast. NBC will present the world's largest sporting event with the theatrical scope of high definition. You'll be able to see tonight's opening ceremony and all the action on ice and snow presented in surround sound with high-def, dramatically crisp picture and its wider cinema-like frame. So to find the channel broadcasting NBC's high-def Olympic simulcast in your area, simply log on to NBCOlympics.com and type in your zip code. Then enjoy the Olympic Games as you've never seen them before, beginning with the splendor of the Torino opening ceremony right after this.
For the first time for these ceremonies by Brian Williams, the anchor of NBC Nightly News. Brian, Torino's moment starts tonight with this ceremony.
Well, Bob, thanks, and thanks for offering a front row seat here to a news guy for what I think is by any measure the greatest sporting event in the world. And these games begin at an interesting, some would say dicey time in our world. There's no getting around that, but we also know that sports can have a huge unifying effect on all of us. Just the names our generation remembers: Spitz, Hamill, Keeley, Hayden, Corbett. Those were all Olympic moments first. They were indelible, and in this age when our attention is so fragmented, this is now one of the few events we all watch. It's that national, even global, collective viewing experience that we all have in common. And tonight, when North Korea and South Korea march into this stadium together, we will see that sports can do what diplomats and presidents cannot always do. For a brief shining moment at least, they can unify and change things for the better. They can also put on an awfully good show, and Bob, that's what we're gathered here tonight to see.
Yeah, and the athletes, Brian, as you know, will have a front row seat for that show because at the Winter Games, the Parade of Nations comes early in the proceedings. And as the athletes file in, they'll be seated in an open staging area that's meant to symbolize the Italian piazza. The Italian team itself will buy custom as the home team marched last, and they have their largest winter delegation ever, 185 athletes. Their entrance should be one of the evening's highlights. As for the U.S., it brings to Torino its most accomplished winter team ever, and one of its most prominent members is with Melissa Stark. Melissa?
I'm joined by speed skater Chad Hedrick, competing in his first Olympic Games, and 4 years ago, you were watching the Games on television. Tell us the story.
Yeah, I was watching the Olympics, and my friend Derek Parra won the gold medal in speed skating in the 1,500 meter. I was at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas playing blackjack, and luckily the table that I was at had a sports bar right next to it. And I have a long-time background with Derek, and he won the gold medal. So I went back and pondered my thoughts at the table over $400 or $500, and you know, I decided that I was gonna move to Salt Lake City, and then 16 months later I was world champion. So I'm really excited to be here.
You started roller skating when you were still in diapers, went on to become the best inline skater ever, but had never skated on ice till 3 years ago. I mean, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that you'd be here doing this?
Well, I always had aspirations to be in the Olympics, and inline skating never made it. So I moved over just like Derek did from inline skating over to the ice. And it happened quickly, but with a lot of hard work as well.
It sure did happen quickly. There has been talk that you could become the first Winter Olympian to win 5 gold medals since Eric Heiden in 1980. What do you expect?
Well, to be in the same sentence with Eric Heiden is an honor for me personally. But, you know, I'm going to take it one race at a time, go out there and do my best, and just enjoy this experience, because I have 35 people from Houston here with me to support me, and it's going to be great. A lot of fun now meeting all these different athletes here, and it's just wonderful.
All right, well, best of luck. And his quest begins tomorrow night. It's his best event. Let's go over to Andrea Joyce.
All right, I'm with another speed skater, 5-time Olympian Chris Whitty, who also happened to be elected by the entire U.S. team to carry the flag into tonight's opening ceremony. You've got this big old gigantic book of Olympic highlights. Where does this one fit in?
This is right up there with my medals, I think. This is one of those special moments that you always remember. So I'm just thrilled to be part of it and thrilled to have the flag with me.
And one of those moments will go back to Salt Lake in 2002. You surprised some people. You were really a long shot. You went in, broke a world record, won a gold medal. How does that experience impact you now that you're here as a long shot again?
Well, every Olympic experience you have, you bring that to the next Olympics. So I think it's just a way to approach a race. Just don't get freaked out with all the pressure and go in there with nothing to lose and just go for it. So that's my plan this time around. I mean, I don't know if anybody's picking me as a favorite right now, but I want to race the same way I did back then and hope I can come out with a medal.
It's probably good advice, too, for carrying the flag. You can't get freaked out, but I've heard that it's really heavy. Have you had a chance to practice?
No, I haven't practiced yet. I haven't even seen the flag, so I have no idea, but I work out, so I think I'll be able to handle it.
Hang on tight. I'm sure you'll do great. Okay. Thanks. All right, back to you, Bob.
All right, Andrea, thanks. And the start of the opening ceremony of the 20th Olympic Winter Games from Torino comes up after this.
The all-new 2007 Chevy Tahoe. Let the games begin.
So the papers came through. I'm officially in charge of my own investments. I want to get some help, but I want someone I can work with. Someone to listen to my ideas, not just make all the decisions for me. That'll be a change after Larry.
The 20th Olympic Winter Games on NBC are brought to you by Chevrolet, America's brand supports America's best. Chevy, an American revolution. By the new AT&T, proud sponsor of the 2006 U.S. Olympic team. By McDonald's, proud partner of the U.S. Olympic team. And by the Home Depot, proud to employ more U.S. Olympic and Paralympic superheroes than any other company.
As the countdown to the start of the ceremony moves inside half a minute, Italy prepares to host its first Winter Games in half a century. Cortina d'Ampezzo was the site of the Winter Games in 1956. And now, in just seconds, the 20th Winter Olympic Games. The Games of Torino will be underway. This shaman-like figure standing in front of the golden anvil is Olympic gymnast Yuri Keiki. He's known in Italy as the Lord of the Rings. He won the '96 Olympic gold and 5 world titles in his event. And the flame that comes up from the anvil is meant to represent passion. The theme of the games and of this ceremony, passion lives here. And now the performers come together to form a beating heart, obvious universal symbol of passion. These inline skaters are known as the Sparks of Passion, and they'll appear throughout the ceremony. Now as the fiery skaters make their exit, the temperature is going to drop a bit as the ceremony takes us to the Alps. The tree men entering from various parts of the stadium to form a forest with a snow effect, and ultimately the scene should resemble a postcard from the Alps. Children raise the flags of the 7 nations that encompass the Alps. Those nations are Italy, France, Switzerland, Austria, Slovenia, Germany, and Liechtenstein. Half of the Winter Games in Olympic history have taken place in the Alps, and the organizers of the Torino Games note that while most associate Italy with the sun and the sea, about a third of the nation is connected to the mountains. A bit of fire, a bit of ice at the start of the opening ceremony, and we're back after this.
A superhero knows how to do things.